Aquí estamos, aquí estamos, aquí estamos. Una vez más, en el live programado para el día de hoy. En la mañana tuvimos al doctor Víctor Guerrero, que obliteró, ¿cómo se llama? Con la gente que se conectó aquí. Ahora, cabe destacar que cada vez que hago un live, más gente uno gana más seguidores, ¿no? A mí no me importa, pero lo de Víctor Guerrero esta mañana fue una vaina increíble. Entonces, fíjate, mira, aquí estamos, ¿no? Aquí creo que antes de tiempo. Professor Marcus Blatz.
There you go, baby.
Oh my God. We're waiting for Dr. Conejo, we're waiting for him. Esto lo vamos a hacer en español y en inglés. Spanish and English, Dr. Blatz.
The whole thing.
Listen, before we start, I want to say that, I have a lot of respect and admiration for your work. I know you have been, what's the term? You have been selected as one of the top 100 clinicians in the world by the International Dental Council. El Dr. Blatz lo eligieron como uno de los 100 mejores clínicos a nivel mundial por el Consejo Internacional Odontológico. That's quite an achievement. But I do want to say that I believe that you have someone who's close to you who has achieved something even greater than that, and his name is Linus. Linus. El doctor Blatz tiene a alguien en su familia que hizo algo mejor que esa vaina. Se llama Linus. Linus is a German champion, 1,500 meters indoor track, correct?
Not champion, but third place.
Look, I'll take third place
national,
any day, Dr. Blatz.
But national, yes, he is.
I'll take third place.
That's great.
Oh my God. 1,500 metros, una milla, 1,500 metros. El hijo del Dr. Blatz es campeón. Give me a minute. I'm trying to find. Okay, Dr. Conejo, here we go. Dr. Conejo,
yeah.
I cannot invite him. Wait, this is not cool. We can't do 3. This is not right. Hold on. Well, Dr. Conejo, this is going to be complicated. Because I did a live with 3 people and I cannot invite them. Dr. Conejo, try to get in here. Dr. Conejo, he's here, Dr. Blatz, but I cannot invite him to the thing. Well, anyway, let's move forward. We'll figure it out as we go along. So you are German. Dr. Blatz is Alemán. Where were you born, sir?
Born in Berlin, but I grew up in Heidelberg, and then spent all my dental school in Freiburg, Germany, actually. So this is down south.
Okay, so Dr. Blatz es del sur de Alemania. No, nació en Berlín, pero hizo su carrera odontológica al sur de Alemania. So, you being a good German, I got one of these.
Like it.
Yes, this is Paulana.
Paulana, good.
Yes, I got this one when I ran the Berlin Marathon.
Oh, you did? Awesome.
Yes. I have ran some marathons in my life. Yes.
Nice.
Yes, I was planning on running Boston this coming month, and it has been postponed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yes. So, I got a couple here. I got this one from Milwaukee. And also this one. This is 8 degrees, 8%. This is a weak one. And of course, I got the Australian one that nobody likes.
That's okay.
So I'm going to go with this. And I am are you a beer fan, Dr. Blatz?
There was actually a beer brewery called Blatz in Milwaukee.
Really?
Yeah, but they closed down. It was too bad. So I'm not related to them. It was bad stuff. That's why they kicked them out of Germany, So
Cheers
there you go.
to you.
That sounds
Cheers
good.
to you. Mm.
Looks like a good one. Got a lot of foam on it. It's
It got a
awesome.
nice foam on it. Yes, it does. I am a beer fan myself. I'm a beer, I don't want to say a connoisseur. I'm just a beer drinker and a straightforward alcoholic, and that's all I drink.
Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not. Entonces, Dr. Blatz, no, Julián, no lo puedo meter. I cannot put Dr. Conejo into this. So we're going to have to do this, both of us. But Dr. Conejo, he should be here. El Dr. Conejo debería estar aquí porque él es el quien invitó al Dr. Blatz, que yo le solicité. Pero no lo puedo poner aquí por alguna razón, Julián. No, I can't put you here. This is not cool. But anyway. So the reason I
invited keep trying.
You, what?
Yeah, tell me. Just keep trying.
Okay.
Maybe we can get him.
Yeah, the reason I invited you, la razón por la cual la invité, is it's because of zirconia, Dr. Blatz. Zirconia is generating, instead of things being already figured out to some extent, it's generating more confusion. More confusion.
Mm-hmm.
En vez de que el circonio ya está más o menos descifrado, lo que se está generando es más confusión.
Yeah.
More confusion. So I have decided that I was going to use my outlets to bring people that are doing clinical work, research on these topics, at least for this week. And I've had some interesting clinicians, but now you're the research guy, one of the research guys. And I would like to hear what you have to say regarding bonding to zirconia. Is it possible?
First of all, I think we should, discuss or settle a few things here, because I totally agree that there's so much misinformation out there. It drives you crazy. It really drives you crazy because there's so much nonsense, and unfortunately, people believe all that nonsense, and that drives me crazy. That's why, I'm not a pure researcher. I would call myself a curious clinician. Okay, I love to do research, but I also, but it's more, there's some people that they sit in the lab their whole life. It's not me. I need to have always a connection. I do the research to make it clinically relevant. That's why clinical research is important. And our research, the way we design it, we always want to make it clinically relevant. I think that's the most important thing. And by the way, you talked about all these, awards and things like that. I think it's much more important that we do the right thing, that we care about our patients, we do the ethical dentistry, we do good dentistry. That's why I'm so glad you invite me, because again, there's so much nonsense out there which drives me crazy.
Yeah. ¿Qué pasó, Doc? Okay.
Big shots, and this, they're on the big screen, and they tell you this stuff, and they bring you also reference. You could find a reference for everything today.
Yes.
If I want to tell you zirconia is great, I can give you a reference. I can give you the reference zirconia is not great, because it's so difficult. And it's why, by the way, we teach our students now not just to read certain articles, we tell them how to judge them. They have to learn what is good science versus bad science, because there's so much bad science out there. All of the online journals that you look at, even though they may have a peer review process, some of them are total nonsense, and they would publish anything. And that is so difficult, because then you go on the internet, you look up a topic, and you get an article which may be total nonsense.
I think, fíjate lo que está diciendo Dr. Blatz, él está hablando de que es necesario, que él es un clínico curioso, que él no es específicamente de la investigación, y que debido a eso, él lo que le gusta es hacer lo que es relevante desde el punto de vista clínico, pero que esté sustentado con la investigación. Y está hablando de que hay artículos que, a pesar de que están en revistas indexadas, que aparecen en una búsqueda, tú haces por lo menos una búsqueda de PubMed. I'm trying to get Dr. Conejo here. I'm not being successful. A pesar de que tú hagas una búsqueda en ¿cómo es que se llama? En PubMed o en cualquier tipo de search engine, ¿verdad? Te van a aparecer artículos que son totalmente ridículos. Entonces, una búsqueda, una revisión bibliográfica no es necesariamente la manera de buscar información para sustentar lo que estás diciendo. Now, that being said, I understand. Well, first of all, You're being humble, and that's okay. That's okay. You know, you're saying, well, awards, well, when you work ethically and somebody recognizes that, that's a good thing. It has to be done, and it was done, it was said. We move along, but it was said. And that has to mean something. That has to mean something. I want to see what that guy who got recognition has to say about a specific topic. Now, you are the guy, very few people do that crossover from clinical to research, understand the research, and then go back and apply. That is a rare breed. Those are the dental nerds. You are a dental nerd.
For sure.
Eres un nerd.
Definitely.
Lo eres, huevón. No jodas.
Definitely.
Look what I have here. Do you got the message about the brush? I got the freaking brush. Oh my, no.
This is for the little stupid question. This is for the bad one. And this is the bad, baby.
Okay, now that's
Good
awesome.
enough?
That is awesome. So my question, and what I'm trying to share with the people that follow me, what I'm trying to share is that being able to bond to a surface that was unknown to us 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well,
is it?
I started with this research 20 years ago.
Okay, but you're different. Like the first time I saw, so the first zirconia I saw was a Bruxer crown.
Yes. Okay.
So did you see something before that?
Yeah. We worked before that. So I mean, and again, I mean, I talk a lot about zirconia, but also please know, it's not the only material out there, and it's not for everything, you know. And some people think, oh, it's only zirconia. It's not only zirconia. We do a lot of lithum silicates, we do a lot of feldspatic, and if necessary, I even do some gold sometimes. It's not the problem. The key is that we select our materials based on what the patient needs, not what companies tell us or whatever. What does the patient really need? And that's how I select the material. Sometimes it's great to use zirconia, and sometimes it's not. It depends on what does the patient need. Do you need opacity? Do you need translucency? Do you need strength? This is how you make a decision. What does the patient need? And not just, hey, I want to use this material or that material because it's fancy right now, because that's when trouble starts. And then you're using your patients as guinea pigs. And that's the problem. Some of the newer materials, some of the hybrid ceramics are nice materials. If you're using in the wrong way, they fail. People think, oh, it makes a lot of sense. They're a little bit more flexible. Yes, but then they may not be good for full crowns. And we've seen some of these come loose.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you use our patients as guinea pigs, you know, and that's not right. So I'm just saying, we do lots of zirconia. We actually, it's interesting. When I moved from Germany to the US, I started to work with Jared Sheesh down in New Orleans. And he took me over. Before that, I was actually almost exclusively do a lot of perio and implant surgery. And then I did also my PhD in dental materials. And, you know, he said, you know what, come over, we can work together. I said, so what topic do you want to look at? He said, zirconia bonding. I said, oh, really? But then I said, okay, let's give it a try and see what we can do here. And it was in the early 2000s. That's why our first papers on zirconia bonding go back to 2003. I know a lot of people don't go back that far and look in the literature. And you can see now always the same studies over and over again. We did about 10,000 specimens just on that topic.
10,000.
We tested all surface conditions. I tested everything that you can think of, all bonding agents we could find, different types of zirconia. Over the years, we did a lot of stuff on that. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why.
Yeah, well,
don't ask me why anybody would do that.
I work in a lab. I know why. I know why. Now,
and I know why. I know why, because now all of a sudden people using the material for everything. It's good for some things, but not for everything, right?
Right.
But you know, we have a lot of experience with it. Also clinically, I don't know if you know Matthias Kern. He is in Kiel, and he did a lot of clinical studies, you know, with bonded zirconia.
Yes.
And so if
do you know Dr. Kern personally?
Oh, he hired me in Freiburg, Germany. at the
No.
university. Yes, we went together. We went together. It's a small world, my friend.
Oh my God. So you work with Dr. Kern.
Yes, yes.
So, you know, Dr. Kern is kind of like you need to read Dr. Kern if you, wow. Okay, so you come from there. Wow. Okay, I did not know that. I did not know that. That's
always
awesome.
some news.
I didn't know you worked with Dr. Cheech. I did not know you worked with Dr. Kern.
Well, before, that was in Freiburg, Germany. And then, you know, Jörg Strub, he was actually chairman. And Kern was, at the time, was like the second in command. And he hired me as a faculty member at Freiburg, yeah.
Okay, now let me translate. El doctor Blatz viene a los Estados Unidos a trabajar con el doctor Gerald Cheech, pero viene de trabajar en Freiburg con el doctor Matthias Kern, marico. Trabajaba con el tipo que inventó la vaina del circo. Entonces, él ya viene con toda una trayectoria, él viene con un PhD en materiales vegetales y llega, y viene de hacer periodoncia, implante, y llega Gerard Cheech y le dice, vamos a hacer circonio. Y comenzaron a investigar sobre adhesión al circonio, y comenzaron a investigar y haciendo pruebas con todos los primers, todos los adhesivos, todos los protocolos, 10.000 muestras, 10,000 samples, 10.000 muestras. ¿Quién hace eso? Who does that? Crazy people. Gente loca, bro. Gente que está conectada en la cabeza, que lo único que... dental nerds. Como yo. I'm a dental nerd. Yo. Dr. Blatz, I get up in the morning and, well, before all of this, I would go to the lab every morning. I work at BISCO. I am the manager of clinical research, whatever. It doesn't matter. I go there and I have access to the lab and I have coffee and I do 10 samples of bonding to dentin. That's my exercise every morning. Every morning. And I have kept that exercise going on for the past 10 years. And every morning, I have my coffee and I do 10 samples. Why? I don't know. But I do it.
See, the same thing. I mean, those numbers, of course, are, when you add all the studies together that we did, I mean, this is like, we had, you know, tons of students work with us, many faculty members who work with us. So this is just, of course, the whole sum of things that we have done. But it was important, you know, because now you can see so many people are using it. Back then, zirconia was only used as a coping material. That was in the very beginning. It was used as a coping material. I mean, we can also talk all about these things about veneered zirconia, which I think a lot of people were totally misguided. And then the thing why we had problems in the beginning with bonded zirconia was actually we didn't understand the material. We were stupid. We did not understand it. I'm serious. That's why, you know, in the beginning, right? So there was zirconia. Exactly. Yeah. There was zirconia. And we used the veneering porcelain that we had for alloys on zirconia. Oh, it's chipping. Of course it's chipping because it's stupid. We cooled it down too quickly. Things like that we did not understand. And then all of a sudden, we're going to, boom, we designed the right veneering material to it. And now it works.
Fíjate. Hold on. I have to translate this. El problema, los fracasos iniciales tenían que ver con la fractura de la capa que se colocaba sobre lo que era la estructura del circonio, porque el circonio fue utilizado en un principio como una estructura, ¿verdad? Entonces, con la mentalidad lenta, estúpida, de hacer lo mismo que se hacía sobre el metal, resulta que comenzamos a ver fracaso y dice, coño, está fracasando. Claro que está fracasando porque no entendemos el material, no lo entendíamos. Y entonces, por supuesto que esos fracasos fueron reportados, pero no era porque el material era malo, era porque no entendíamos la interacción entre una superficie y la otra. Okay, Dr. Blatz, keep going.
Oh, okay. I'm listening to you. Sounds good. By the way.
Right, you know, I have to be edgy.
Absolutely.
I have to be edgy.
No, but see, there was a problem in the beginning, and then, you know, we started. So then everybody said, "Oh, zirconia." You remember there was some time. There was in the, you know, mid 2000s when then people said, "Oh, zirconia, forget about it. It's like it's the worst, and you shouldn't use it. Everything's chipping." You know, but then people started to develop some veneering porcelains that were very specific for zirconia. The proper coefficient of thermal expansion which has to be in a certain range within the coping material.
God damn it. Hold on. I'm going to write that down. So this has to do with the coefficient of thermal expansion.
Absolutely. And it has to do with the fracture toughness, and it has to do with the cooling. For example, the zirconia, you have to cool down much more slowly because zirconia does not transfer heat. It kind of keeps it inside, and then it may have stresses inside. And this is why you have to cool it much more slowly. If you do it too quickly, you will see fractures. And the veneering portions that were then developed for zirconia had a different coefficient of thermal expansion. You want me to go into more detail?
Go on.
No, it's interesting because, you know, gold, for example, has a CTE of about 12.5 to 13.5, and the veneering portion has to be slightly below that in order for that veneering system to work. So if you have zirconia, which has a CTE of about, 11, 10, whatever, you have to use one with much lower CTE, and then it can work better. Then we did actually a clinical study, retrospective study, with one laboratory in the Boston area, over 1,000 porcelain fused to zirconia restorations in the practice that were using one very nice veneering porcelain that we know is very successful. And
but very successful. It's very successful on metal.
No. Which was very successful on zirconia.
Okay.
And we compared over 1,000 porcelain fused to zirconia crowns in the posterior to over 1,000 porcelain fused to metal crowns in the posterior. And the fracture rate and chipping rate was exactly the same.
Wow.
There was no difference.
Wow.
Okay, there were as many over 7.5 years. 7.5 years.
5 years. Entonces, fíjate,
7.5.
7.5 years.
Yes.
Entonces, fíjate, el doctor Platz está hablando que esta discrepancia de los materiales que se le coloca al circonio, ellos lo estudiaron a través de un laboratorio en Boston que hizo aproximadamente 1.500 restauraciones en metal porcelana y luego 1.500 restauraciones con una porcelana específicamente diseñada para trabajar sobre circonio. ¿Ok? Ahora estamos hablando de empresas que están desarrollando materiales para colocar sobre el circonio. ¿Qué se observó? En un estudio retrospectivo. ¿Qué significa retrospectivo? Retrospectivo es que las coronas ya estaban cementadas, las restoraciones estaban cementadas y comenzaron a ver cómo es el comportamiento clínico, pero desde aquí, no desde el inicio. Y que observaron que digamos, la tasa de fracaso que había con las metal porcelana y la zirconia con este material era la misma. Entonces ya puedes decir que conseguiste un material. So now, because of that, you can say that this material will behave pretty much as the standard.
Well, yes and no. Unfortunately, then zirconia, veneered zirconia with the veneering porcelain on top of it has become not popular anymore because people were afraid of the chipping. They heard that. This is when monolithic materials became very popular, like Emax or monolithic zirconia now.
Like
so of course, yes, of course, absolutely, and there's millions and millions of those now in the patient's mouth.
Now, are they all the same?
All the same what?
Okay, so let me tell you my experience this last Chicago midwinter. I went to a lecture with Dr. Riley Christensen, and regardless of how you feel about it, she's got a clinical study going on that is quite interesting. There are nuances about statistics and all, but it's interesting. And she talks about the differences between a monolithic zirconia from one company and the monolithic zirconia from the other company. She's talking about this thing called ID dent that has to do with some kind of label that you have to put on the material based upon the amount of impurities and all of that. So what she was establishing is that you can't really say that all zirconia, and I'm not even talking about 4Y, 5Y, 3Y, I'm talking about monolithic. There can be differences.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, yes.
Okay,
absolutely. Oh,
so
yes.
Right.
Oh, my
so
God.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
There are huge differences. That's why first let me clarify one thing for the people here, if you don't mind. Before we go more on the topic, one thing that drives me totally crazy, and we need to say this to everybody here, because these people that are following us now are all smart people. They want to listen to you and me, hopefully to me. They want to listen to you. But I want to clarify one thing. So I hear people say, you know what? Zirconia is a metal. When I hear this, okay, you got it? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, let me clarify this to everybody here. Let me clarify this. Zirconia is not a metal.
Yes.
And then people go, but then some of the smart people go like, but look at chemistry. Zirconium is a metal. And I said, yes. Zirconium.
But not the oxide.
Exactly. But
Not
people
the
understand
oxide.
that. Even some of the big shots, they go out there and tell this nonsense, and people believe it. People believe it.
Okay, so now this is what happens.
That's crazy.
Okay, I go on social media and then I say, hey, this guy who's a hotshot, he's an idiot. He's saying zirconia is a metal, and then
Exactly.
They get offended and they write me.
Exactly.
How can you call me an idiot in public? Because
Exactly.
you are.
Hey.
You are an idiot.
And then and you know, and the thing about this is, okay, let me explain this to you. Zirconium is a metal. It's in the
number
periodic
42
system.
in
Exactly.
the periodic table.
But zirconia with an A in the end is a short version of zirconium dioxide.
Yes.
And zirconium dioxide is the crystal. It's a ceramic. It's a non-metallic polycrystalline solid. It's the total opposite of a metal, because a metal conducts heat, a metal transfers forces very differently. You know, and it can deform itself. The biggest difference, why is it so important? The biggest difference between a metal and a ceramic is the following, is the ability for plastic deformation. You know, we can show it in a stress strain curve, what we typically do. So a metal, if you have a wire, right? You have a wire, or, you know, I don't want to bend this one now, but you can bend it to a certain degree before it breaks. We call it plastic deformation. Metals can do that because they can reorganize themselves.
Through something called dislocation motion. I just wanted to add that because that makes me look very smart. Go on.
Exactly. We call it plastic deformation. A ceramic cannot do that. A ceramic is a brittle material. So why is this important, though? It's important because you cannot. Some people say, "Oh, zirconia is the white steel." Bullshit!
Bullshit!
It's not.
Yes!
It's not.
Marcus
Are you kidding me?
Bullshit! Are
you kidding me? Are you kidding me? No, it is. Because, you know, it's. Apologize for that, but it drives me crazy.
Yeah,
it drives me crazy.
Yeah. Look, Dr. Blatz, let me translate. I don't even know if I can translate all of this. El doctor Blatz está diciendo que si nosotros...
One word you leave out of the translation, okay?
I will not do the bullshit part. El doctor Blatz está diciendo que si seguimos pensando que el circonio es un metal y escuchamos a los pendejos, a los huevones, a los estúpidos, a los idiotas que siguen diciendo que el circonio es un metal, vamos a fracasar, porque el circonio no es un metal, el circonio es dióxido de circonio, es una cerámica. Y no lo dijo Roland Bon, lo dijo Marcus Blatz. No lo dije yo no. Marcus Blatz lo está diciendo. Entonces, yo tengo diciendo esto cualquier cantidad de tiempo. Ahora lo dice el que sabe de esta vaina. Now, Dr. Blatz, I'm going to change gears here. You have coined a process to achieve predictable bond to the surface through, you know, you're like, you know, to me now I am so, I don't even know how to say it. I mean, I've read every single Dr. Kern's article on this stuff, and yours, of course. We use you and Dr. Kern as references whenever we do studies at BISCO. I just wanted to let you know that. Whenever we talk about zirconia, an article pops up. An article, you know, what, or not one, many. Now, you have gone through so many permutations of possibilities in order to achieve predictable bond. Would you be so kind and share with us what you feel right now in this coronavirus pandemic? What would be the most optimum way to achieve a bond to that surface? Go ahead.
You didn't let me finish what I wanted to say about the importance of
Finish it, brother.
No, let me just, before I answer your question.
Yes.
Why is it important that we understand the difference between a ceramic and a metal? Because if we use the ceramic in the same way as a metal, we will make mistakes.
Why is that? Why?
Because you cannot do the same thing. Like, for example, when you use a full mouth rehabilitation made out of titanium, you always have a little bit of a possibility to give. When you use it out of zirconia, it will not be possible, and you may see fractures if your impression is not correct, for example. Or if you, for example, make zirconia too thin, it will break. If you have an abutment and you prep it, right?
Yes.
You prep the heck out of the abutment, but if you make it too thin, it's going to break. And then you say, oh, the zirconia is bad. No, it cannot. Once it's too thin, it will break. If it's too thin, you rather use a titanium abutment. You know, you have to think and be smart when you use the material. If you use it the wrong way. But this is why also, we can talk about that later, but this is why also zirconia implants work different from titanium implants, because forces are being distributed differently. When you have a bridge, it will work very differently from a biomechanical standpoint when you have a brittle material as the substructure or using a metal. This is important to understand. It's why in the beginning we saw all this chipping and the problem and the bridges and this and that, right? Because we didn't understand the material. Very simple. Anyway, I want to go back. I want to go back to your question now. Yes. I don't want to bore you the hell out of you. I just but Dr. Dr. Platts, we need to understand.
Listen, you're not boring me. You might be, you know, some of the audience might be thinking this is too much. And to be honest, Dr. Platts, let me tell you, I don't care what people think. I don't.
Just get him another beer. That's all.
That's all. What you're doing here is a service to dentistry. Service to dentistry, especially to my Latin American followers. If they're listening and they're able to understand, great. If they can't, find somebody to translate. To be honest, you're giving me a master class for free. I owe you money, and I owe you beer.
It's not about money. If it was about money, I would definitely not, you know, investigate bonding to zirconia.
Oh, absolutely not. If it was about bonding, of course.
That's
awesome. That's awesome. Go ahead.
This is really, you know, this is for us to understand what we're doing and not using our patients as guinea pigs. Okay. By the way, let me also clarify one thing before I get to the master question. How do we bond to zirconia? When do we bond? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. Short preps, bonded, you know,
tapered preps, veneers.
Yes. But you always have to understand, bonding always requires multiple steps.
Yes.
The enemy of bonding is contamination. If you have blood, if you have saliva, everything there, you don't use a rubber dam, how can you expect it to work? That's the first thing, okay? You have to have a clean working environment. Otherwise, bonding will not work, and you're doing a bad job if you do it. You better use a cement then. And by the way, if you have a conventional crown, a conventional bridge out of zirconia, there is no need to bond.
Yes.
You can use a glass ionomer cement, use a
Absolutely.
resin-modified glass ionomer, you use a self-adhesive resin. Don't even bother with bonding.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Totally agree. Treat it like a metal. Treat it like a metal.
Exactly. And exactly. It's so you don't, it's strong enough. You don't have to bond it. You know, you use again, you know, glass ionomer cement, resin-modified, self-adhesive, whatever you feel like. And you do not have to add any bonding agents anywhere. Because once you do that, it becomes more complicated. However, there are some instances when you have to. You said it, prep like this, which I'm sure nobody does listening to us. They're all like, perfect preps. I know that. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
8-degree, you know, taper, 5 millimeter height.
Always.
They never prepped a second molar.
Nope.
Never.
But people now using it, of course, for veneers, and also, I mean, where I use it the most, where we in our clinics is actually when we use bonded zirconia, is for resin bonded bridges, single wing, one retainer, resin bonded bridge. I can explain a little bit more later if you want me to.
Sure.
But because it's a great way if the patient doesn't have the money for implants, is too young for implants, and that happens many times. If right now, the recommendations when you start placing implants, especially in female patients, goes up and up and up. So you have to buy sometimes when they're out of their, when people are out of their, orthodontics, and they may have, missing laterals, whatever. And you can buy sometimes nicely with bonded bridges.
Yes.
And as I said, zirconia is a nice material for that if you know how to do it. If you don't know how to bond it, it's not going to work. That's the key. So we need to identify, protocols that can help us to bond the zirconia. The next thing, and I will not use that word that I used before again, but it still drives me crazy when people say you cannot bond to zirconia. It's not true. It's just not true, because we tested it, and there are clinical studies that come from Matthias Kern's group, 12, 15-year data, 95% success. And you tell me you cannot bond zirconia?
Come on,
these are all
man.
bonded
Come
bridges.
on, man. Come on.
Of course.
See, this is the deal. No. See, this is the deal, Dr. Blatz. To me, you see, this is the argument. If you get on a lecture, y ya me van a perdonar los que no están entendiendo porque no voy a traducir más. I'm not going to translate anymore. I am a listener right now. Having Dr. Blatz here is an honor. Not only that, I don't care about translation.
Yeah, dude.
Sure. Whatever. Listen, when you get up and talk, not you, someone and talk, and you listen to a lecture and so on, that's fine. But when you talk in intimate, when you're sitting down, having a beer, or having dinner with somebody, and you tell that somebody, listen, this guy, Matthias Kern, has 15 years. What? What are you going to tell me that it doesn't work? Well, okay, so why is it that you want to go so deep into the how do you call it? Into that research that you find on PubMed or whatever, and just to find whatever it is that you want to do? These guys that are doing clinical work and doing research work are telling you that you can bond to it, and it's working for 15 years. Why should I doubt that? It is something that you have to consider. Now, the question is, what is it that they're doing in order to make those restorations last for 15 years? That is my only question. I am not doubting whether you can bond to zirconia, because I know I went to Northwestern and we did a study, something called SIMS, in order to determine whether MDP will bond to the zirconia surface. I know that chemically you can bond. I know the procedure you need to do. But when I have somebody telling me that clinically it's performing 15 years, okay, I want to listen to that. I don't know what you think about that, but I have read your articles. I have read Dr. Kern articles, Dr. Bargis. I have read a bunch of people's articles, Dr. King. And I see that everyone with little variation, they're going the same way. The same way. Variations. Oh, I use 15, micron. I use 45 micron. I use 2.8 bars. I use 3 bars. That's all fancy. But we all know this is where we're going. So would you mind and share with us, what is it that needs to be done on the surface?
And I mean, you're totally right, because also there's a lot of studies that now support everything we ever said. And I mean, the systematic reviews from Van Meerbeek's group also, that pretty much support it. Look at all the studies that were done, over 400 studies now in the meantime, that look at the same topic, and they always find the same thing. By the way, I mean, I'm not saying it's ideal, and possibly in the future, we will find better ways to bond the zirconia.
Absolutely.
But right now, we always find the same thing. what we did, we termed it the APC technique. Okay, it's just okay. I have to admit, I'm lecturing around the world, talk about this topic all the time, and still people come to me, oh, you cannot bond to zirconia, you cannot bond to zirconia. Then everybody knows how to bond to silica, like feldspathic porcelain, acid etching, and silane coupling agent, right?
Right.
But still, people didn't get in their head, and I had a sleepless night. Oh man, I was going like, how can I make people understand what I'm talking about and keep it in their mind? And then and I said, oh, Americans, they love acronyms. Like everything is like, FBI, FPC, this and that, whatever, So I have to come with an acronym to make it simple. And I said, okay, what are we doing?
I'm sorry. Americans, they love acronyms.
Oh yes, everything. I come to this country and then everything is like FPC, LBI, FBI. I have no idea what it means.
TAC.
Exactly. They said, listen, let's give it a term.
Oh my
and as I said,
Glatz, during Oktoberfest.
Huh?
During Oktoberfest, this year, coronavirus is going to be over. I'm going to Pennsylvania, and we're going to have some beer, brother. I got to tell you.
Oh,
I'm on.
Actually,
I'm going there. I got to tell you.
You are invited. You're invited.
Oh,
and you know what?
God.
I make my own Oktoberfest at home. I make my own Oktoberfest here. You're invited. You come.
Wait.
I have my own Oktoberfest at home.
You make
our own Oktoberfest with our friends and the neighbors. We have our own Oktoberfest here.
How many people?
In my house?
How many?
Not that many. It's friends and everything. It's like everybody does.
I'm not
get
your
together,
friend, but I'm going.
Well, now you are.
Well, now I am. Hell yeah. I'm going to
Dr.
Black's Oktoberfest festival in his house. Okay.
There you go.
That's all I'm saying.
There you go.
So you develop. I just wanted to get you to say you coined the term APC.
Yes.
Could you explain APC?
Some people think, oh, he's so full of himself. No. I just try to find a term that makes it easy, and I would call it APC. Why APC? In all our studies, what we found was actually you have to do the following steps, must steps. Air abrasion, or some people say sandblasting, but I don't like that term as much. Air particle abrasion is the better term, I think, because we don't use sand. We use aluminum oxide, not sand. So we call it...
Hold on. Let me break you here. You know that the term smear layer on dentin, when you translate that to Spanish, is lodo dentinario. Lodo means kind of like mud. So it's always perceived as a negative thing.
Yes.
When you talk about universal bonding agents and self-etch, they think about mud.
Yeah.
And then no, wait. It shouldn't be a negative connotation. So I understand when you say sandblast, it's not the right thing.
Yes.
Because it's not sand. It's actually air abrasion. And I do agree. So go on.
With aluminum oxide, and I explain to you more why this is so important. And the next step is you need a primer that contains certain monomers that can chemically bond to zirconia.
So again, it is possible to chemically bond to zirconia.
Oh yeah. So the big thing we need to understand here again, silica ceramics, glass-based ceramics. What do? Hydrofluoric acid etching, silane coupling agent. Yeah. These are the two things. For high-strength ceramic, alumina or zirconia now, you use air particle abrasion with alumina and a primer that has the ability to chemically bond to metal oxides, to oxides. You talked about MDP. This is one of them. There's several similar ones, but this is probably the best. This is probably the best.
No,
for whatever reason, it's the best.
Do you feel MDP is one of the most predictable ones?
Yes, absolutely yes. And
I don't want to say the best one. I want to say predictable.
Yes, absolutely. And, it has the ability to, on one hand, bond to each other, to itself, and to the composite, and on the other side, to the metal oxides. And that's why the dual bond, micromechanic and chemical, is very important. Now, another thing that I just recently heard, somebody said, there is no chemical bond to zirconia. What? 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 Gotta bite my tongue, otherwise I'm gonna use that bad word again.
It's called mental masturbation, Dr. Blatz. Mental masturbation.
It's crazy.
When they say shit like that, it gets me. Oh, come on, man.
But people believe it. The problem is people always believe the bad news. They don't believe the good news. They always believe the bad thing. And it's always bad. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. Come on, guys. Come on, man.
Totally agree.
Give me a break, you know? So because actually, what also people don't understand, the chemical bond to zirconia is the most important one. With air abrasion, and we use aluminum oxide particles, typically, 30, 50 microns, the pressure doesn't matter as much, the time doesn't matter as much, the particle size, again, doesn't matter, but we use it to air abrade the surface. And what happens? And that sounds weird, but I looked very closely. We have, in our nanotechnology center at Penn University, we have a lot of great, great equipment where we can look at bonding interfaces at the nano level.
Yes.
And what we looked at was quite interesting at the bonding of, to zirconia. What we found is that the roughening effect is not so much. What it is actually the cleaning effect, and also you have particles that are getting slightly embedded into the zirconia surface. And that sounds weird, but that's exactly what it is. It's similar when you're using systems like Cojet or Rocatech, which are like particles that are alumina particles that are covered with silica.
Yes.
And then you can use a silane coupling agent. But here we're talking about using aluminum oxide particles. They get spread over the surface. They decontaminate the surface as well. And some of these particles get embedded into the surface through the air abrasion step.
So you're saying, hold on.
Yep.
You're saying that the aluminum oxide has an impact on the bond?
Oh, big time. Not so much the roughening effect. Not so much the roughening effect. This is why the roughening effect is not so much. No.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
I did not know that.
Oh, I can show you even, when we get together for October Fest. But no, and that's the thing what people don't understand. It's why there were some studies where people said, oh, you should never air abrade, zirconia because you weaken it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
transformation of the faces and all of that.
But there was one study, the studies that showed that they use very large particles until they could see there was a damage in the surface. And of course it's weaker then. We're not using large particles, we're using small particles, low pressure. That's enough. That's enough. But what I also like to do, instead of using, multiple things, back and forth, every restoration that goes into the mouth in our clinics, in our student clinics at University of Pennsylvania, every restoration that goes into the mouth, after all the try-in, will go in an ultrasonic cleaner. 5 minutes, put it in the bag, a little bag, for 5 minutes, alcohol or acetone, and you put it in the cleaner. You take it, then the surface is clean, boom. Even the gold crowns, whatever, before cementation, so you have a clean surface. And then after you have ultrasonically cleaned it, you use air abrasion step, aluminum oxide, and then and it's just a few seconds. You don't have to go like, just go like, that's enough. That's totally enough. Then you use a primer. So A was air abrasion, P is the primer, but it has to be a specific primer. You cannot use a silane only. It has to be a primer that can bond chemically to the metal oxide.
So
MVP
how many
is
primers
one.
do you know that bond chemically to zirconia?
Almost every manufacturer of bonding agents now has their own zirconia primer.
Yes, we do.
Some of them?
Yes, we do.
And some of them actually combine a silane with the MDP, so you can use the both.
Look,
but
I think MDP does the trick. That's my perception.
No, it's not only your perception. There's actually not only our studies, because I could be wrong, many other studies. Like I said, Van Merbeck's group, they did he did a very nice review on bonding to zirconia, systematic review as well. And they found also 300 something studies always come to the same conclusion. So after you use the chemical bond now with your primer, okay, air abrasion, primer, and the next step is composite, APC, composite, of course. You want to use, when you have a more opaque material, you want to use a dual cure or a self-cure material, okay? Composite.
Hold on. I want you to emphasize on dual cure and self-cure, because we got a lot of people that are using these heated composite to cement their inlays and onlays and crowns, because they believe that heating the composite is magic. I want you to say again, you got to use a self-cure or a dual cure composite, which will be a cement.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. For the zirconia, you have to. I mean, you have more flexibility with your, you know, when you use a silica-based ceramic, you know, but like for the, you know, feldspathic veneers, we typically use a light cure material.
That's a different story. That's a different story.
Exactly. Because you have to think, when you light cure, you cure through the ceramic.
It's a different story.
And at the end of the day, where your composite is, not so much material, not so much light will go through. So you want to use a dual cure or a self-cure composite for that. You know, that's our recommendation. And this is pretty much, and of course, it's not only that. Some people say, oh, but it doesn't work. Well, treatment plan. When do you do a bonded bridge or a bonded veneer, you know? And then second, you know, it's not just a treatment plan, it's what does your preparation look like? Many times when things debond, we see the, you know, all the cement or all the composite actually on the inside of the crown, even the zirconia, and nothing on the tooth, meaning that maybe you're bond to the tooth. Exactly. And it starts with your preparation.
Absolutely.
When you do a bonded bridge, okay, or whatever kind of bonded restoration, you want to try to preserve as much enamel as possible.
Absolutely.
If you prep the heck out of the tooth and you try to do a bonded bridge, for example,
good luck.
You will lose it. It's not, then don't blame the zirconia or the bonder zirconia. You have to blame yourself. That's what it is. So keep the enamel. That's rule number one. If you want to get good bond, is keep the enamel. Preserve the enamel. And then you can use phosphoric acid. You can use a nice bonding agent, and that's it. So when you do a bonded bridge, always see where you have the most enamel available and keep your preparation to a minimum. Do not overextend it. There's no need. That's what also, you know, another thing that drives me crazy. Some people think when they put like grooves or holes into the tooth.
Oh, they're gonna get macro.
Exactly.
Macro.
Oh.
Patito.
With both of them. I see people, they proclaim that stuff. I'm serious. That's what you see. I mean, they put this stuff online. Everybody goes, oh, this is awesome. You know, 20,000 likes. Are you kidding me?
For real? For real?
Okay, let's say it straight for our people here, because we have great people here. Macro retentions, grooves or holes, do not improve adhesion.
No.
They do not improve adhesion. Once the adhesion is gone, it's gone. And that's the problem. And what I've seen sometimes as well, when the restoration is still stuck into place mechanically, but the bond is gone, all the bad bugs go underneath there and create havoc.
Listen, Dr. Blatz, I got about 3 minutes to finish this conversation. And I have had, listen, I had Dr. Guerrero, Dr. Mirko Villarroel, Dr. Andres Roman, all over from Latin America. They're all clinicians. But listening to you has been a, you know, it's just this breath of fresh air. I have absolutely no way to thank you for giving me one of the most wonderful hours in this quarantine. Listening to you has been so amazing. And I am going to, after we're done, this is going to go in my account live. I'm going to record it and I'm going to listen it to a to it over and over again. Thank you.
But no. One thing though. One part you have to cut out.
Yeah.
Oh, but somebody was asking, by the way. I'm sorry, but someone is asking about where to read up on that stuff. You can read our articles if you go into PubMed and you punch in Blatz MB, BLATC MB. You will find our articles there.
Dr.
As well.
Blatz, I already got asked about that, and I will answer. And
Good.
I have every single article you have ever published in my library. So if somebody
Poor guy.
Yes, I do. Or at least that I could get my hands on. Every single article, I have it in my library. When people ask me, hey, can you send me something about zirconia? I tell them, type M Blatz. And then tell me what you want. I kid you not. Dr. Blatz, I'm not doing this because you're here. This is what I do. I tell people, type on PubMed, M Blatz. Once you find something, let me know. And I'll send you that one because I probably have it. I have one question from one of my key opinion leaders, dear friend, Dr. Milko Villarroel. I'm going to translate this because he just wants to know your opinion. He says, if the 5Y zirconia have approximately 50% tetragonal and 50% cubic, what happens to the transformation toughening that actually works for the change of interface or the transformation from tetragonal to monoclinic? Yes. What happened to this property? How does it work?
It's not there anymore.
It's not there.
That's why the material is weaker. That's one of the reasons why the material is actually weaker.
Yeah, but it's weaker than the 3Y, but it's not weaker than lithium disilicate.
No. Of course not. No, it's still about double the fracture strength. Still about double fracture strength as compared to lithium disilicate. But that's why it's slightly weaker. I mean, we're talking about, what is it? 600 megapascals.
Yeah,
whatever,
600 compared to about
a little higher.
300.
Yeah, so there's a price you pay. You get more translucency. The price you pay is strength. It's still about double as compared to, or at least higher than the lithium disilicate. But again, there's also a lot of, we do a lot of lithium disilicates as well. In the right indication, that's the material to use. On the other hand, now we have options with the zirconia, and some of these are the multi-layer, are really beautiful materials. You pay a price, it's a weaker material, but again, it depends where you want to use it, what you're going to use it for.
I have the same thing here with Dr. Pascal Magnier on Friday, and we'll talk about feldspathic. And then on Saturday, I have Edward McLaren, who I'm sure they're going to talk about their stuff. Listen, Dr. Blatz, I don't want to be like any of those guys. I respect Pascal. I respect Edward McLaren. Ed McLaren has been a mentor to me.
Great people. Oh my God. I'm a huge fan.
Pascal Magnier, written a book, all that. I want to be like Marcus Blatz. I want to be the guy. I want to be the guy who gets up there and talks about clinical and research crossover. I don't have that ability, but I am so thankful that you have dedicated 1 hour of your knowledge to my following. There is no way ever that I will be able to thank you. By the way, ADS Stefan from Germany contacted you. I'm going to be talking to you. I'm going to be sending you, and we will be working with whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Dr. Blatz, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this for Latin America. Esto lo hizo Marcus Blatz por Latinoamérica. Thank you so much.
We're in this together. We're in this together.
We are
in this together.
We are. All right. You have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
And we're here.